what the falconry community has given me over the years, and it allows me with my magazine, it allows me to ask people. I'm not looking for Booker Prize winners, authors and things like that. I want people to give me true stories and what falconry means to them. If I were only one person subscribed to my magazine, I would still produce it because I just love falconry.
Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back for another episode of the Falconry Told podcast, and what is now the 9th episode in our series featuring falconers from the UK. And this episode also happened to be the last episode that I recorded while attending the Valley Expo, which was coordinated by one of the guys who is instrumental in bringing me over to do this series, as well as one of our media partners being Neil Davies. And he is the editor of Pursuit Falconry magazine, which you've heard us promote many times over here on the podcast. And as always, I'm going to recommend that you check it out if you haven't already. There's always lots of great falconry content in every new issue, lots of great articles, pictures, and advertisements for new falconry equipment that you may or may not heard of. So if you haven't yet, head to pursuitfalconry.co.uk and check it out and subscribe today if you haven't already. And that being said, since Neil is one of the guys who is kind enough to make this podcast series happen in the UK for us, I'm going to go ahead and give him his due here and go ahead and just turn things over to the conversation that I had with Neil Davies after the Valley Expo and hanging out some at Stonehenge. So hope you enjoy it. Here we go. Glad we finally got a chance to do this face to face.
It's a great, really, and it's been a great few days. And thanks for coming to the UK. I do appreciate you coming over to support the last weekend's event. And we've had a good day today. Took you over to show the henge, and take over a bit of Salisbury Plain as well. So it's been a good day.
Yeah, no, it's been a great few days, and as I have been saying, I really appreciate you and Simon both taking the really just beyond required gesture of bringing me out here.
No, it was a pleasure because I've been following the podcast for a while, and obviously I want to share that podcast link through my magazine, so that works. And when I said to Simon, I'm going to help a little bit, and he said, I'll match that. And then when we were at our Zoom meeting one Sunday afternoon, and it all worked when I finally logged on. But yeah, it's been great having you here. It has been a busy few days because I've been working at Valley Expo. I've been sort of running this event here now. It's a unique event. It's basically a falconry event showing a lot of new tech, and we're lucky enough to have some great people come in here demonstrating. The weather's been great. We have a decent amount of people coming through the gate, and but it's at Valley, which is Britain's home for falcon racing. It's been an exciting few days, and it hasn't been without some challenges. It's been very tiring for me personally. It's long hours. I've had a few days to get over it now, and obviously an opportunity to catch my breath, relax, and think I've got to start working back on the latest edition of the magazine. So from the chaos of doing shows and organising a unique event with Valley Expo is now back to my sort of like day-to-day job, which is creating my falconry magazine. And so that's what I've been resting thing to do today, really, just to try to get that to work. Got some good articles coming in this month, and then hopefully I had some lovely emails from people today, and when we were in the car going over to Stonehenge with yourself, Tony James got on the telephone, and we should have recorded the conversation we had for nearly an hour, but it was very, very funny, and but Tony's a very good friend. He apologized he couldn't make it to the event on the weekend. It'd been great to put together a few people. And I think hopefully the people who will listen to the podcast that you've done at Vowley and with Simon next week, hopefully you'll represent British falconry in a very positive light. I know some of the people you'll be speaking. I'm not going to know who they all are at that moment because obviously it's there are some people I'm really looking forward to listening to myself. I've had the sneak preview of Steve Halsell, and that was great. And Steve has become a very good friend of mine in the last few years. I've known him for many, many years. And obviously he was talking about his good friend Steve, Paul Fields. And I can remember back in 92 buying some 100 great partridges from him. So it is a small world. A lot of us have mutual friends, and what we try to do at events like what I put on this last weekend is basically getting friends together. We haven't seen each other for a year, and we just talk things all falconry. And I'm a bit of a falconry geek anyway. We had some great art on show. And obviously, it was great to see my daughter. While I was working on the event, my daughter manned my stand for me, and she made me money. So it's good. So she should pay me back.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's kind of funny though. It's kids have this funny way of taking money, but not necessarily giving it back sometimes,
No. My daughter Harriet has been a very passionate falconer herself. She's a very accomplished horsewoman, and but she's made a very brave step. In the last few weeks, she's making a change of career path, and she's been accepted to join the police. So as a dad, I'm very, very proud of her, and she's a great girl, and she's been around birds since when she was born. And I can remember her first bird she started flying was an American kestrel, which is very familiar to our American audience. And she would love walking around with a kestrel and learning. And it takes me back. It's the amount of times we used to go out training falcons together on the farm we lived on. And I was flying a big black Jerseyka at the time, and it clocked me in the side of the head and laid me out. And she must have been about 5, maybe 6 years old, and she had got hold of the lure, picked the falcon up, and then she came over to me. "Are you okay, Daddy?" And but she had learned how to pick the bird up. But she's been around birds all her life, and so she's a very accomplished falconer. She doesn't do it these days. She's 100% obsessed with her horses, but she knows what she's doing. And as a father, I couldn't ask anything more of her. She's helped me out this weekend with the magazine. She's now got a few new subscriptions for it, which is great. And also a lot of the people who do subscribe have recognised her because she was featured quite heavily in the first few editions because she trained a New Zealand falcon, which I was very lucky enough to get from Dr. Fox. And I've known these falcons for 40 years because Dr. Fox actually was my mentor. I met him at college, and I've been trying to get into falconry for many, many years. My dad used to take me to every game fair. He was a very keen fisherman. He wasn't a hunter. He wasn't a falconer himself, but he understood the country ways. And my dad would always take me to a lot of country fairs, and I'd go up to the local falconer who would teach me. And is knockbacks after knockbacks, but I was always wanting to learn. And I think a lot of falconers find that. Listen to Steve's podcast, he was the same. And when I met Dr. Fox my first day at our college, he had walked into his lab. I was studying wildlife illustration. And part of my course was understanding the anatomy of animals. And I walked in there, and he had a peregrine falcon on a cadge on his desk. And I said, wow, I was blown away. Get that really up close and personal with a bird. I just knew instantly what it was. And I asked him, will you teach me? And he said, no. And then I badgered him for weeks and weeks and weeks. And in the end, he relented. And then he showed me. And the rest is basically history. So I've been involved in one way of falconry since now 1982, and I've been very fortunate. I've worked both in design work, and also I've also worked in display work, and I've worked as a professional falconer, and I've worked at some amazing places. And Nick introduced me to Jemima Parry-Jones at the then Falconry Centre, which later became the National Bird of Prey Centre, and then latterly it was International Centre for Birds of Prey. And recently they have closed the gates. The charity still runs, but the ICBP as it was, or Falconry Centre as it was, does no longer exist. And that has a lot of happy memories for me. I've been there many, many times. I worked with Jemima at many shows. I've had opportunities to fly some amazing birds, and Nick gave me that opportunity to go there as a student, as part of my course, to go there and learn more. And I basically ended up virtually living there, and I worked there for a couple of years. And we travel all over the country with Jemima doing bird shows, and I've learned a lot from her, especially. And there I met her father, Philip. And Philip, I was very lucky enough to meet him. He's quite a hard, straight man. He'll say he's called a spade. And he knew I was passionate, and he knew I was going grouse hawking. I got an opportunity to go cadging with Martin Jones, and so I was looking forward to that. And he said, "What are you going to fly?" I said, "Well, I'm just a student, and I can't afford a peregrine." And a couple of weeks later, I had a phone call from Jemima, and she said, "Neil, get your ass down here to the centre. My dad's got a present for you." And I came down, and I walked into the centre, and she says, on the lawn there were 3 peregrines. It was an African teasel, and an African female, and also what we would call it like a British peregrine falcon. And I thought, African teasel was beautiful, tiny little falcon, can't be more than about 13 ounces, really compact little thing. And I thought, he looked a bit too small. Would he take on? I wanted to fly grouse. That's every falconer's dream, is to fly a red grouse. And I thought, an African peregrine, I'd only ever seen a couple of them before, and I was a bit frightened of taking on that extra responsibility. African peregrines, not many people get the opportunity to fly that. And then there was this stunning, IS female peregrine there, and I thought, I'm going to get a chance to fly this. And I said, could I have that? And she said, yeah, my dad said, yes, you can have any bird there. And so I took the bird up, and I had gone over to Martin Jones. He gave me a Doug Pineo hood, and we could the bird up properly and everything else. And I thought, I'm going to go back to Lancashire where I was living at the time, and I trained this bird to start learning how to wait on. And then I met up with Martin, and we went up to Scotland, and we were staying on Tulcan for about 3 or 4 weeks. And there, like Martin Jones, very well known British falconry equipment maker, but also he did his life seemingly was all about grouse hawking. And when I was cadging with him, I had the opportunity to learn from somebody who was very skilled, and I was very, very lucky in that respect. And I don't know many sort of like 21-year-olds get an opportunity to fly one of these amazing birds, and also going in a place which has a lot of grouse, because we were flying on Tulcan Lodge, which is quite a well-known grouse shooting estate in Scotland, in Granton-on-Spey. And then one day Martin said, we're going over to Castle Grant, and we're going to go go hawking on one of his friends' estates. And there was Charles de Coon, and he said, I'm this young lad. I felt a bit out of depth here, but I was hawking over Martin's amazing pointers as well. And when we were there, with no pressure, it was like the who's who of grouse hawking in Scotland. And I met Steve Frank and various other people like that. And then they said, okay, Neil, it's your opportunity to have a flight. And so put my Falcon up, and she mounted up nicely, and I can even remember the day, 23rd of August, and she mounted up nicely, and said, okay, Martin, head the point. So as I walked on to head the point, I sort of bumped another little covey, and so they bumped, and then the dogs had gone forward, bumped the quarry. I was aiming to head point, and they just took off. And then, but my Falcon folded lovely, and she just went in and she barreled into it. It wasn't, like I say, it was thousands and thousands of feet, but it didn't seem that high. But she hit it and bumbled it into the heather. And Martin says, and I thought, oh, that's great. I was happy she had hit a grouse, and that was ecstatic. He said, no, you got to go now. Got to get to find the point again, and we're going to give that bird now. She's hit it hard. Now that bird's not going to go far, so we bumped it up again, and the young squeaker grouse is just basically burst off again across the heather, and she came in underneath it and grabbed it, and she bundled herself and her prize in the heather. And last thing Martin said to me, whatever you do, do not let your bird eat all the breasts. You could hand that back to Charles, who was his guest. And obviously I was just so enthusiastic, and and I was just, there was time before we had mobile phones. Otherwise I'd have millions of photographs of that. But I have that photograph in my head, or the image, and Martin gave me a little bit of heather. We caught the grouse on. So I've still got the feather in an old game book. And that was the only time I've ever caught a grouse. And that was something that still excites me, gives me a tingle in the back of the neck now, even talking about it. And I know I've been very lucky. I've had opportunities to fly some amazing birds in my time, and opportunities to go to some amazing places. But that evening, I apologized to Charles, because also I let my bird just eat the head and half the breast, and I went to him, I'm very sorry, sir. He said, don't worry, my boy, catching your first grouse is important, and I'm glad you enjoyed it. And he was a true gentleman, and I was very lucky. And then that evening, Steve Frank came up to me and said, I understand you caught your first grouse today. Well done. And I still remember all that now, and as if it was yesterday. But now I've realized it's it's over 30 years ago, and it makes me feel old, but I still have that excited feeling when I still go hawking, and I haven't had as many opportunities to go grouse hawking since, but my plan ultimately with the magazine, it goes back. I want to get to a position the magazine does amazingly well. I'll sell it, sell it to somebody who wants to carry on what I've tried to create. And it allows me then to lease a grouse moor, and I can take my friends, go grouse hawking with. And that's really all I want to do. I'm just passionate about all forms of falconry and the art of falconry. And also, falconry has given me so much. It's given me opportunities to meet yourself and other people. And a lot of people, especially over the last few years with the magazine, has allowed me to get insights into different opportunities to go places as well. The magazine has taken me all over the world, and it's taken me laterally to the Middle East several times, and I've had opportunities to go hawking Hubara bustards off a camel. And the tip is there: if you ever go hawking in the desert, find a camel with a fat bottom. It's much more comfortable. But I've been very lucky, and I appreciate that. And I always try to spend time with anybody asks me any questions, any child or any young person that asks. I try to help them because I know how hard it is to get into becoming falconers, because it's not for everybody. I've sacrificed a lot. I've gone through 2 wives and numerous girlfriends. I'm not necessarily a good partner in that respect, because I spend so much time with my birds, but I think that's the right thing to do for me personally. but also Falconry's got me a lot of great friends, and the internet is amazing, and I have obviously thousands of Facebook friends, and most of them I've never met, but some of them I have, and a lot of those people have written articles for me as well. And especially over the last couple of years since I produced the magazine as a paper form, it has given me more of an insight, because I read my magazine about 15, 20 times each article before it gets finally printed. And it seems that people all over the world have bought into it. And I am very grateful for all my readers, both in the USA, Canada. I got one subscriber in Singapore where falconry is legal, but he's been supported my magazine since the very start. And obviously latterly now I'm getting a lot of Australians and New Zealand subscribers as well. And I have obviously my core audience is in Britain, and we are doing okay. We can always sell more magazines, but there's no difference for any publication. But what I aim to try to do with the magazine is to promote falconry in a positive light as much as possible. In the May-June issue, I had a great article done by an American falconer from Utah, a young lady called Krista Hong Edwards. Some of you probably will know her in the US, and great photographer, great writer. And she said, I've got a great article on a good friend of hers called Mark, and he's got ALS. And probably time this will go out, he may no longer be with us because he was that. But that gentleman has gone out, and he's still practicing hockey, and he has a modified wheelchair. He has an amazing young daughter, and family supporting him to allow him to carry on his falconry. And that's what falconry is about. It's that community, and we all have that love of what falconry is. It's about, for me, no matter what bird you fly, I'm just excited watching anybody's bird. Because I personally fly peregrine falcons, it doesn't mean I'm better than somebody who flies a Harris hawk or a red tail, or in this country it could be a common buzzard. My first bird was a common buzzard. But the thing is about doing it well as best as you can. You'll make mistakes. We all do. Even experienced people make myself. I still will make a mistake because you get complacent. And if I can give any advice for young falcons coming through, read as much as you can. If you can't afford the books, go to the library. Libraries will bring you books in if you can get them. Give them the right ISBN number. But these days now, Amazon's amazing. You get lots of great new books coming through on it. But what I try to do with my magazine, I try to show some new interesting stories, also a little bit of history, because I am a bit of a falconry geek. I collect a lot of falconry miscellanea, and Jonathan's seen even a small part of my chaotic collection. He's been very polite. He's not laughing at that one. And but so I'm passionate of what I have, and ultimately, I've been very lucky. Over the years, I've had some amazing gifts. I can remember 3 or 4 years ago, I actually, Steve had put a competition on Facebook in the hood makers thing, and identified this hood, what bird would fit. And I said, Benelli's eagle, and it was right. And I've still, the hood is on my mantelpiece now, and Steve is in the house the other day, and he said, you still got it? I said, yeah, that's one of my prizes of joy. I should have it under one of my glass domes, but all my other hoods are in there. I haven't got a dome for that. I'll have to go get a new dome to keep that hood, because it's a beautiful hood. It's in red, and the people who know me, I am obsessed with red, and being a Welshman. But it's a little red. It's got some gold tooling on it. It's a hood. I've never flown a Benelli's eagle, and I probably would never do it. I've been up with people who do fly different eagles, and I have flown some other eagles in display purposes, and I've had the opportunity going out when we could hunt mountain hares with golden eagles with some really good friends, Alec May he said, "Oh, come with a good friend of his." It was Neil Hunter, and we went out and back in February several years ago. Now it must be over 12 years ago, and we were out in the snow. And basically, caught a mountain hare, and it was an incredible experience, And I've been lucky, and that's what my falconry is to me. It's about seeing people fly birds as well as they possibly can. It's like I said, if a bird catches something, it's a bonus, but I enjoy the flight, the pursuit of it, irrelevant what that quarry is. I love merlins now, and this year with a very good friend of mine, Rob Cole, who's quite a renowned merlin breeder in the UK. I put my jack with his female, and unfortunately, we had 2 clutches of eggs, but all infertile. Maybe next year, and as the Arabs would say, inshallah, which is God wills it, and hopefully next year we'll be lucky, and I'll have a merlin to fly, and then we'll potentially make a new breeding pair, and then if any friends of mine would like a bird to fly and would like to fly a merlin because they're amazing birds to fly, please. I've been lucky enough. People have given me birds, and I probably would carry on that same thing. And because the peregrine I fly was given to me by Rob, and he's a very good friend, and we call each other up once or twice a week and talk all things falconry. His long-suffering wife, Sarah, or Neil's talking about birds again. Is that all? And that's all we do, really. Or rugby when the rugby is on, because we're both passionate rugby supporters. But yeah, it's just we are both a pair of falconry geeks, and Rob's got an amazing collection of falconry equipment and falconry books. So when I get there, I get a chance to see some of his stuff, and every now and again, in my travels, I get gifted small little badges from falconry clubs and like that, and then I say, "Yeah, Rob, a little gift for you," because he has a huge collection of falconry badges. But again, it's about falconry is for me. It's that community, having people who are passionate about it, and sometimes you're too close to it, and sometimes asking a friend, and he can look at it more logically than you are seeing, and I think that is the way. What for falconry means to me. I've been very lucky over the years to meet some amazing people through falconry. I've met some people which I wouldn't want to ever meet again, but those are more fewer than, but the ones I would love to spend more time with, that's important. And with these podcasts, I know Jonathan's doing here, it's great because I've listened to some of the podcasts he's done, and I know the people he's interviewed, and hopefully the people will enjoy them as much as I do. Because quite often I listen to podcasts quite late in the evening when I go to bed. And as I said to Jonathan, don't take it wrong. I will listen to podcasts and maybe take me 5 days before I finish the whole podcast, so I'll fall asleep. But it's old age and exhaustion.
Yeah. No, I always apologize to people when they say, "Oh, I listen." I'm like, "Oh, I'm sorry." No, it's I've gotten used to begrudgingly kind of listening to myself over and over and over again as I put these things out. But yeah, no, I mean, unless of course you're getting a sneak peek and decide just to randomly sit down for an hour and, just go ahead and just barrage through a quick episode because you're getting a little taste before everybody else, like you did right before we got on here.
Yeah. And it was great. And because obviously now I hope I'm not giving the whole game away because I'm not sure which position I will be in this podcast.
A little bit later for sure.
Yeah. Okay. Anyway, but the first one will be Steve Halsell. A great falconer, has become a very dear friend to me over the last few years. And only a few weeks ago, I was up at the BFC Northwest region, and he said, "Would I give a talk about my magazine?" And I thought, and what I'm doing presently, and I thought, why would people want to listen to me talking? Because I don't necessarily think that that would be interesting. But he said, "Yeah, no, come up, please." Now, and and I met the other guys there and Paul Robinson, and who came to see us on Saturday. We had a good chat with him and everything else, but it was a busy day for me. I didn't have enough time to spend with Paul to say, but I know I introduced him to Jonathan, and they had a good long chat. But we met and discussed with loads of different falconers. But the thing is with Steve, I think you'll enjoy that podcast, because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I have listened to it for the last, it does go on over an hour. It's not because Steve has been he's a master hood maker, and it's not something you use lightly, but he's a true gentleman as well, and hopefully if people enjoy it half as much as I have, I think Steve will be honoured to be featured on the podcast, because he's quite a humble man. He wouldn't sort of throw himself forward, things like that. And when he asked me to do that talk to the BFC Northwest, I sort of looked at the crowds. He had gathered about 20, 25 falconers there, and I was speaking about the magazine, also speaking about a role I've been working with, promoting Vowley in respect, as Vowley in the UK is the home of British falcon racing, which some people like and some people won't. But falcon racing is hugely popular in the Middle East, and most of the birds which are bred in the UK and overseas do get shipped out to the Middle East. And it is an interesting concept, because it's part of their culture, having birds of prey. But over most of the Middle East, the people aren't allowed to actually hunt in the desert. So they use falcon racing as a way to keep their culture growing. And if you ever get a chance to go to the Middle East, you can go into some of the souks, and you see young boys hooding falcons and training falcons in the squares. And they have amazing skills as young boys, but they're taught by their fathers, their grandfathers. And also, if you get a chance to see some of the hood makers there, some of the Pakistan hood makers there, they'll have these ancient blocks. And I was in Qatar in 2014 at an IAF conference, and the IAF took us down to the Falcon Souk in Doha, and we had a couple of hours to walk around, and I was speaking to this elderly gentleman. He must have been in his 60s, 70s, and I said, "I love your blocks. Can I buy some?" He said, "Why would you want to buy my blocks?" And I said, "I think they're beautiful. They're like pieces of work of art." He said, "I can't give you that, but they were my grandfather's." And this man now, he would have been the same age as my father if he was still alive. And he said, "Well, thank you." And he said, and he gifted me a hood, and I was quietly taken. I said, "No, please, I'll pay." He said, "No, I want to gift you because you like my grandfather's blocks." And I said, "I know, I'd rather have your blocks." But he said, and I understand that's his tool, it's his trade, and I still have the hood now. It's in my a vast collection of falconry blocks and falconry hoods and bits and pieces like that. But that's what falconry gives me. I love the history, geeky stuff of it. I love new tech, love new tech. In the house this weekend, we've had several different people staying here. It's been like an open house. I've had Danny Carter from Bullex sleeping on my sofa. I've had Jonathan Munius sharing a room with Kevin Robinson from Scotland. And apparently Kevin is officially the worst snorer in the world.
Not the worst, but he's up there. Love you, Kevin.
Yeah. And obviously in my conservatory, I had another gentleman, great glove maker called Calvin Crossman. And I left Kevin, Jonathan, and Calvin putting the worlds to rights over a bottle of some bottle of whiskey. I can't remember the name of it. I'm not a whiskey drinker. Some
kind of fine Scotch.
Fine Scotch. So and Kevin has fortunately left a little bit for Jonathan. Jonathan is smiling. He has been drinking some British beer, and we're trying to show him the hospitality we can in the UK. But again, and upstairs we had a young couple from Italy with their Fly Boost UFO drone, which is quite an exciting little piece of kit. And also they have a little camera rig that fits on back of birds, which they've gifted me one. So I'm going to try that on one of my Falcons and see if I can capture some amazing footage. Because if you ever get a chance, go on to the Fly Boost Facebook page. You'll see some footage.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, it's like they call it the shark backpack or something like that.
I believe so. Yeah, and they were showing us this image of one of their Seika Falcons flying through a city near Rome, and it was incredible. And I thought, oh wow! And then they were showing how they developed their Fly Boost drone, which is an exciting thing because obviously I've been working with Dr. Fox, and he sort of invented the rope ray range of products, and I've been flying one of his products since the very beginning. And I'm a terrible pilot, but yeah, I find it a very useful tool. And obviously, one of the technology companies was staying in my. It sounds like I have a huge house, but I just crammed lots of people in. I had Xavier Morel from Microsensory staying here with his family as well. So it was a busy time, and I may not be the best host. Because they all actually did my dishes and tidied my kitchen, so they can come back and stay anytime.
No, it was it was me and our Italian friend.
Yeah, Athena.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, we were just kind of getting to know each other a little bit, and just kind of. Yeah, tidying up your kitchen. We both felt immensely sorry for you as you look so ragged and stuff by the end of the weekend. We just
well, it was a busy weekend. We're lucky we had a lot of people come through, and a lot of people have complimented what we've tried to put on you. But it's not just myself; it's the team. It's it's a lot of people behind the scenes that people don't see and thank. We had a great maintenance man I've been working with for the last few months here, a gentleman called Mark. And Mark came up here at the beginning of the week from Carmarthen, where the IWC base is. And Mark had a bad back, but he's worked like a trooper. The man's a machine. And he's brought two of his boys, Jack and Horace, and they're great troopers, and they work hard. And the rest of the Fox Falcon team has come up. We had a chance to speak and watch the guys fly. There's some amazing Falcon flying, but we've had some amazing people come and support the event as well, and a lot of Falconers have come in over the last few days, and it's been tiring. I'll admit it's been really, really tiring, and and I've had quite a bit of sleep since the event is now finished. But it just allows me now just to think, oh, that's finished. But is it like I know in about 7 or 8 weeks' time, they have the British Falcon races, and I think it'll be their 4th years of Falcon racing at Vowley, and so it'll be an exciting time for everybody at the team. I'm going to be focusing a lot on my magazine because obviously I will be featuring the various things what's happened in the last few days here, and also the people I've met. Also, hopefully I'll get an article out of Jonathan to feature in there. We've got some interesting photographs, but whether or not we can publish those, I'm not sure. But if you ask Jonathan the name of one of our local pubs, I think he did laugh when I took him into Sally's pub. But we won't go any more than that. Yeah. But I think what the falconry community has given me over the years, and it allows me with my magazine, it allows me to ask people. I'm not looking for Booker Prize winners, authors and things like that. I want people to give me true stories and what falconry means to them, because I'm just a big. If I were only one person subscribing to my magazine, I would still produce it, because I just love falconry, and I'm lucky enough that I can make a modest living from it as well. And a lot of people, I have a very loyal subscriber base, and I have a lot of articles being sent to me. I haven't published every ones I've had yet, purely because it's only so many hours in a day I can work, and but also one thing I have been also very lucky, if anybody ever sees the magazine or goes online to see it, the covers, I only ever feature artwork on it. And one of the artists, Martin Hayward Harris, he had never had a cover on a magazine. And I said, I can do this, Martin, because it's my magazine, I can do what I like. And he'd done a fantastic bronze of a friend of mine called Alan Greenhaw. He's got an amazing Falcon called Dora. She's stunning, absolutely a monster white Falcon. And Martin's sculpted probably one of the most stunning sculptures I've ever seen. And it had a lot of admiring glances from a lot of Arab guests this weekend. And I believe he's now going to be going to Saudi Arabia at one of the big festivals to demonstrate or feature some of his work out there. So it's fantastic for Martin, but his man's a humble man. But when he was so chuffed to have one of his sculptures on the cover of a magazine, and I said it's not a problem. It's a pleasure for me to feature it. And when I went to his studio, because we were working on another project together of a flying Seika Falcon, and he said, "Oh, come down to the studio, see where I am progressing." So I went down there, and in his studio, he had a stunning painting of a peregrine on a sea cliff with thrift and things like that all around it. Thrift is a little pink flower we have on the coastal cliffs of Wales and around the rest of the UK. And I said, "Can I have a photograph of that, Martin?" And he said, "Why?" I said, "I'm going to feature another magazine cover." So he's had 2 magazine covers from me now. So, but that's the good thing about it. And I hope I've made his day, and hopefully if he listens to this, he'll appreciate it. Now, if he wants to give me one of his amazing sculptures, I'll happily accept it. And I dare say Jonathan would as well, but I think it'll push him over his luggage limit. I think they weigh about 25 kilos each. But again, it was a beautiful thing to have. But again, and that's what Falconry has given me. It gives me a chance to feature artists which haven't been featured before, show some young artists and some older artists, and it's somebody people haven't been featured, and and I hope over the coming months and years of the magazines and carry on working is that we can feature a lot more artists. I've got some American artists being featured later on this year, and also I've got 2 American artists being featured, but I'll hold them back. But the next issue is featuring an Australian artist who's also a wildlife rehabilitator, Martin Scuffins, of a wedge-tailed eagle. So that will hopefully, it shows, I try to feature artists from all around the world as well, and also artists that I admire. And I suppose that goes back to the very start of myself. I used to draw a lot of wildlife, so a lot of birds of prey, obsessive, drawing them all the time. And that's what probably got me into falconry and wanting to be a falconer. And I've been a falconer and I've been a display falconer, but I would call myself more of a bird trainer when I do display work, because it's not true falconry in that respect. We use a lot of the same techniques. But it's one thing it does give you you can represent what falconry is. And I always say to people, why do you do it? Because I enjoy it. And sometimes we tend to forget or seem to be afraid with the anti-brigade that they don't. Why should we say, because I enjoy it. I enjoy seeing a bird doing what it does naturally. Falconry ultimately is the art of using a trained bird of prey in the pursuit of quarry. And that goes back to why I call the magazine Pursuit. And I always feature the art of falconry, because that's what is the description within UNESCO, because they'll never ban an art form, and it is an art. If you go around the world, and I've been lucky enough to travel around the world a lot with the magazine, and a lot of people have asked and contacted me, can I do articles from you from all corners of the earth, and which has been amazing. And what it does show me that the enthusiasm is huge out there, and I try to encourage as many youngsters in the art of falconry. Yes, it is a sport, but especially now with falconers, and that is much more of a sport type thing. But falconry is the way of training a bird to pursue wild quarry, whatever it could be, whether it could be hunting a red tail like you do in the USA, hunting squirrels and various forms of rabbits, jackrabbits, cottontails, which I hope to get over to Indiana and in December for when your big field meets. So I'm going to try to get across there. It's like I said, it's timings for myself. I'm hoping to go to the USA, especially in January, because I want to go to see the Utah Sky Trolls. I've seen them videos for years and years and years, and to meet people like Mrs. Chingrin and the like, it'll be an honor for me to do that. And also, I know at the end of the month they start the international Merlin trials, but again, I'm a huge Merlin nut, and to get a chance to see these amazing birds being flown out there again, that will be exciting for me. So it's like a bestman's holiday in many ways, but also as a bird geek, first of all, and a falconry geek, I'm just so excited for that. And if I can do a report on it and share that with other people, and hopefully those people will enjoy what I've tried to create with the magazine, I think I've done my job right. But again, it's not without effort, but I can't do it without the contributors to submit the articles, submit some amazing photographs I get a chance to see. And sometimes I have so many photographs, which one should I not use? And I hate trying to use as many as I possibly can. I would probably add more pages to the magazine sometimes, because there's some photographs there which are just too good not to have shown. But yeah, and I think I just love what I do. I'm lucky enough to be paid to do something I love. And if anybody can take anything from what I'm trying to show people and what I'm trying to create with the magazine, is that you don't have to be the best writer, but everybody's got a good story. And some of the stories are remarkable. And, I've listened to Steve's today, and I'm looking forward to listening to some of the others, because a lot of the people that Jonathan's met over the last few days have been people I've admired for a long time, and let's hope so you in the podcast world and the falconry told world will enjoy what the Jonathan's done, and obviously in the next couple of days you'll be heading up to Simon for probably a more comfortable bed, better quality food, and probably better hospitality, because I'm a terrible host, let's be honest. But I try my best, but the thing is about it, the falconry community is quite a tight-knit community. Now, we don't always get along, and sometimes the internet is great, but also you can comment on someone's photograph and you type something in without thinking, and it can be construed one way or another. And I think sometimes I try to say to people that before you post, read it and then delete it and then write it again. Because we need to work together and we can learn from each other. The world's a small place now, especially the falconry world, especially with Facebook, Instagram, and the various other social media outlets there are these days. But obviously, when Jonathan and I sort of got together, because he did his Simon Tyers interview, and he did Jose's one. Jose's been writing for the magazine for the last couple of years, and I was recommended, and I thought, my story's not interesting enough. I don't think I've got something interesting. And me and Jonathan had spoken. I said, I'm not really sure. I think we'll do one face-to-face one day. I'll come across. And, what falconry is about getting people together, really. And if we can do that, it's great. I hope, you've enjoyed yourself.
Oh, I've had a great time, and you've been hard on yourself some about the whole host thing. I mean, I've had a roof over my head. You've transported me where I need to go. You've fed me. You've taken me to see some cool things. That I'm pretty low maintenance, and
I agree that he is quite low maintenance. He's very funny as well. So,
I'm very appreciative. You've been a very good host. So I mean, you've been a little hard on yourself, but and I guess I should clarify from my earlier statement. I don't really feel sorry for you. I felt bad for you because I saw how run down you were, But no, and I completely agree with what you said, and the whole idea in what you do and what Israel and I do or trying to do with this. I mean, I'm not, and people don't want to listen to me. I mean, people want to listen to people like you and all these people that around the world that are wanting to share stories, and whenever I found out about your magazine, I thought that it only made sense to reach out to people.
Yeah, because I know I regard you as a media partner, because I love listening to the podcast, because I think the paper form is beautiful, and I love paper, because I produce my magazine. If anybody gets a chance to pick a magazine, have a feel of it, it's the touchy-feeliness about it. I don't have a glossy paper. It's a much more, like a softer paper in the hand. For me, I wanted the soft paper because it reminded me of when you handle a bird. You got to be delicate with it and things like that, and it's soft. That's why I chose a soft paper. It sounds me being a bit arty-fatty, but it's about, I believe very strongly, so many things in falconry is all about touch and feel, and that's very much so when I train birds and when I teach people how to fly birds. And I've been fortunate enough, I've worked at some amazing places. I had an opportunity to be the first falconer at Gleneagles Hotel back in 92. I've been really lucky. I've had some great jobs, but generally I stay in jobs for a year, 2, 3 years, and then I get excited. I want to do something else now. I'm like an eternal child. I'm always looking for new challenges. But the magazine is now coming into its third year. This August it'll be the third year, and it's growing, and I'm proud of that. And it started off because I was lucky enough to have permission by the George Lodge Trust to be the only magazine in the world at the time to be allowed to feature black jess. And any falconer out there who knows what that falcon picture is, you'll understand. And I was the first magazine to be allowed it. The trust said, yes, we'll allow you to do it. And I was humbled, to have that. And George Lodge I've been a huge admirer of his work for many, many years. And what I've always tried to do is represent falconry in a positive light as possible. And it's, as I said, there's a lot of people out there who want to knock falconry, but falconry does a lot of good. And falconers, by their nature, are quite humble. They don't want to tell people what they do. But it's interesting. I've had some amazing people that now are writing for me, which wouldn't ever say that I'm not a writer. That's not what I do. But I try to show strong images and give sometimes a bit more graphic feel to some of the images as well, to make people think a bit more. But all the articles, you don't need to be, as I said, you don't need to win a Booker Prize to be right for my magazine. If you've got a great story and you've got a great article and you've got some amazing photographs, because that's, a picture does say 1,000 words. If you've got something like that, please send it in. You can go to www.pursuitfalconry.co.uk and just contact me through the website. And hopefully, some people listening today will think, I'm going to send an article. I've got a great old story. And that's what I think. What is sharing those stories, because sometimes you think, I wish he had taught. So I've met certain people over the years who are no longer with us; they've passed on. It reminds me back to something we were listening in the car early on. We were speaking. Tony James rang me up, and in the car, and Jonathan, Tony James, he said, and so I introduced Jonathan as we were driving, and And Tony, if ever a chance to meet Tony, he's one of the funniest guys in the world. Passionate falconer, hugely passionate, loves his merlins, he loves his peregrines. And I've met Tony at numerous falconry festivals and events over the years, and we've always had good chats. I can remember many years ago, one of the British falconry fairs, my daughter Harriet sold him 2 magazines. He says, you can't just have one, you could have 2. And she sold him 2. And I think she was about 5 or 6 years older. She's a natural seller. Now, that's what I had on my stand. And but when we were talking and about what falconry means to each of us, and we had a little bit of banter back and forth and laughing about lots of different things. But one name came up, and a gentleman, many will know him and sadly miss him. He passed away last year, Professor Matt Gage. And I met Matt when he was still a student, and he'd come to Dr. Fox's, where I was helping out on a falconry course there to collect a merlin. And I can remember that we went out to this merlin on the Preseli Hills, flying, and he came up to me. I was in Doha at the IF conference, and he said, "Are you Neil?" And I said, "Yes." And I said, "You look familiar, but I can't quite remember." I said, "I'm Matt." And we sort of like looked at each other and said, "Nick Fox course back in the early 80s?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "You had a merlin?" And he said, and he was quite shocked, I can remember. But again, and that's what falconry doing. You get your chance to have those stories. I'd love Matt had written for my magazine, but sadly he's no longer with us. But, and something Tony said to us, he deeply misses Matt because he was his hawking partner for many, many years. But I think that if we can share those stories, we can get something out to people. And there's a way to remember them as well, because Tony did a fitting tribute in the magazine earlier in the year as a thank you towards Matt. And I was some very good friends of Matt and Tony sent me some amazing photographs as well, so I can include within in the tribute. But we've been very lucky. A lot of people who have supported the magazine. Like one of my biggest supporters of the magazine is Marshall Radio, and I know they supported the magazine for the last nearly 2 years. And it's for people like that and the advertisers that I have now. Like this weekend, I picked up a new advertiser because we were just talking, and he wasn't aware I produced a magazine. He thought I was just Mr. Vowley, and we, because obviously I'd arranged this event here, and he said, "Oh no," and he said, and we discussions, and he ships animals, both zoo animals and birds, all over the world, and he said, "Oh, I advertise with you," and I said, "Okay," and then we discussed the thing, and he sent me the artwork to thing, so it'll be in the next issue, and but it's amazing. You speak to people and say, "Oh, I got a great photograph to show you," and I've been a couple of people who asked me, "Oh, could I feature some of those photographs you featured in an earlier issue?" And I see in my social media, and I have some historical old photographs which are given to me by some old people who are no longer with us, and I want to try to share that stuff, and hopefully people can then take from it, because like I want to go, like next year I want to go to the Falconry Archives in the US, because that'll be like a geek stream for me. If I can get a chance to get behind the scenes a little bit, and obviously go to the Falconry Fund, because I was very fortunate to meet the late Professor Tom Cade many years, and on several occasions, both at Dr. Fox's breeding place and also at Jemima's. And Tom was always encouraging to a young falconer like myself. And that's something I've remembered, and I want to try, if I can help any young person, or don't have to be that young, everybody's young compared to me these days. Don't laugh, you, young man. And but if I can try to show people, falconry can work well together. Sometimes we are misunderstood by the media, and sometimes we don't necessarily tell people what we do. There's a lot of people do amazing stuff with rehabilitation, and I'm trying to do a few more features on that. But yeah, I've been very lucky. I've had invitations all around the world, but the last couple of years, because of COVID, we can't travel, and it's great to see Jonathan now coming over this side of the pond, and I'm looking forward to go over to Indiana in December to go and see hawking in his neck of the woods, and if I can get a chance to go into the far west to see the big skies and seeing the big falcons, sage grouse and things like that. That's something I'm looking forward to. But again, falconry is about, it makes a difference what bird you fly. I'm going to enjoy watching it. That's for me. No matter, I'm not a falconry snob. I'm just, if a bird's flown well, that's what I want to see.
That's great. No, I mean, and like I said, it only made sense to, talk to you and get to know you better, and the fact that we could kind of help each other out some, and everything. It's been great. And like I said, I mean, I'm very appreciative to you and Simon for this opportunity, and I hope that you all feel well represented by the time this is all said and done.
Well, I'm looking forward. I'm probably not so much on my own podcast because nobody really wants to listen to me. But I said, if somebody enjoys it and things like that, and but if you can take anything away from it, if a young person comes up to any falconer and asks you, "How do you do that?" Think how you were yourself. Give them a chance. Because I think because if we don't have young people coming through, falconry will die, and it'll go to become an archive thing, or it's a lost art, and I would hate to see that. There's still things we're learning. There's lots of new tech being developed by all the telemetry companies. There's a lot of new medicines coming through, and like we had an opportunity to speak to Tom Dutton at this conference and listen to a lecture he did on avian flu, because obviously that's affecting British falconers, especially in the last couple of years. In Wales, where I'm originally from, we couldn't fly for virtually a whole season, because it was restricted, and it is problematic, and I think we've got to be aware. Falconry could get affected by something which is not by government. It could be by nature is stopping us doing what we love to do. And if we can learn from that, new veterinary medicine is coming through. Also ways of husbandry and how we look after our birds, and in developments in perch design, developments in equipment design. I can remember when I started off, I know how to make all the perches, I know how to make all the equipment, but now I predominantly only use braid because I find it lighter, it's more resilient, and again, it allows me to have all my braid red. I only have red braid, so because if I drop it, I can find it. But I said, I love leather, but that sounds wrong in that statement. But again, it's knowing how to make equipment as well. I think that's important. That's a skill. I'm not a good hood maker like someone like Steve. There are so many great hood makers around these days. And there's a lot of American hood makers, which I've been lucky enough over the last couple of years to acquire a Gene Johnson hood. And at the start of lockdown, I was lucky enough to acquire a John Moran hood. It's a very simple hood, but it's part of my collection, and and I'm lucky enough to have that. And if somebody wants to see it, come along and hold it. It's from a master craftsman like Mr. Moran. To see these pieces of work and the Gene Johnson hood is just wow. Because I foolishly many years ago I had one and I sold it for quite a decent amount of money, but I always regretted it. And I was very lucky enough. An American falconer, he had put it on Facebook, and he said, "I've got a hood, Gene Johnson hood." And I said, immediately messaged him, and luckily I was the first person to get through. And he said, "Yeah," and I said, "I'll buy it." Didn't really ask him what the price was, but I just wanted to have a Gene Johnson back hood in my collection because Gene Johnson didn't seemingly want to ship any overseas, and otherwise I would have had loads and loads of his, but he wouldn't ship them overseas. But I was lucky enough to have, and now I have one in my collection. It's something I know. It's not necessarily a public show because my house is chaos at the moment, and really because I've still got stuff I haven't unpacked for when I moved in, and it's probably the case when I move out and I move on to into another home and things like that. I'll still have things. Oh, I've seen that for a few years, but I've got quite an eclectic collection of falconry equipment. I got some Mongolian swivels in measure horn, and I've got a hood by an Arab falconer, by a Kazakh falconer called Blackhawk, and I got at one of the festivals, and I said to him, could I? And he said, yeah, I'll sell it. And he also gave me a pair of eagle jesters as well, and I'm very, very lucky, So I've been in places, right place, right time. I found some, and I found I've had some amazing gifts from some amazing people, and falconry has given me that, and I'm very grateful for it, And I think if I'm pleased Johnson's enjoyed his company here with me. I am a terrible host. He can admit it. I won't take it personally, but ultimately, we're a small community, we're a niche market, and falconry can do so much good, especially you think about what the work the Peregrine Fund did many years ago with helping re-establish peregrine falcons. If we can tell people what we do a bit better, and communicate better. I try to do that with my magazine. But there are, as I said, the podcast is great. I enjoy them and things like that. And obviously things on YouTube, some great videos on it, some dreadful videos on it as well. We ultimately need to look at falconry needs to represent themselves as professionally as possible, because the people who are against any form of hunting are very well organized, and they have vast finances to build up a lot of public support quite easily by sometimes misrepresenting things. But falconry seems to be something that is tolerated by lots of people, because when I used to work in the zoos, people said, "Oh, I don't agree with this," and I said, "Well, I respect that," and I would say to people, "But you can imagine if you had an injured bird of prey, what are you going to do?" And they said they would. In the UK, we would take them to the RSPB or someone like that. And I said, "Well, as I'm someone who can train a bird of prey, to train a bird of prey to actually do what it does naturally, which is hunting. If I can then rehabilitate that particular bird of prey, be it a hawk, a broad wing of a falcon, if I can get that bird to fly in again, get our fitness levels up, that the bird can has an even chance to survive in the wild, is that a better?" And they go, "Well, yeah, maybe I can understand that then." You may not enjoy the process of what we do, but sometimes if we can tell people what we do and not be afraid to say, "Why do you do it?" "Because I enjoy it." Because I generally enjoy seeing birds fly well. And I believe fit birds catch things, fat birds don't, and fat birds don't breed. From experience, especially in a lot of zoo collections, a lot of birds which are overweight, but it's the same with any type of animal. If you can have things which are fit and have been flown on a regular basis and then put in the breeding aviary, those birds end up producing very strong youngsters and things like that, which then can either be rehabilitated back to the wild or reintroduced in the wild or create new breeding colonies. There's a lot of things that falconry can contribute to conservation. And I think if we can work with the different falconry bodies around the world, like like in America, you have NAFA. In the UK, we have the BFC. In Wales, we have the Welsh Hawking Club. In Scotland, we have the Scottish Hawking Club. And there's also numerous other falconry clubs in the UK. We have quite a lot of different falconry clubs. But obviously in Germany, the Deutsche Falkenorder, in France, in Spain, Portugal, all these places have falconry clubs. But we're very lucky here. We don't have too many restrictions. We can fly a lot of birds, but the hardest thing in the UK is finding suitable quarry and suitable land to fly on. And I think Steve touched upon it himself. Mm-hmm. Some land has been put into preserves, like I dare say would have been the same in America. I wish I had land like you have in the US when you have, as you call it, the state
BLM lands and stuff like that. Yeah,
and
public lands.
And I think having something like that is an amazing thing But we have a lot of people who have birds of prey, but also we have a lot of people who collect birds of prey. And, what we can do with falconry is get to a point that if we can get people to enjoy what we do, get people together, go to field meets, get opportunities to meet people all around the world. And falconry has given me that. And I'm very humbled by that in that respect.
No, for sure. And it's something that can easily kind of go awry if we all, from time to time don't put aside differences and things like that and, kind of band together to become fairly united voice, I guess I should say.
I would fully agree. And being united is important.
Yeah, and it's one of those things. Like I said, it's something that we can't take for granted, and hopefully we'll continue to be able to do it for a long time to come. But what's been great about this talk is you have pretty much managed to touch on almost everything that we usually like to cover without really any prompting whatsoever.
Well, thank you.
And
I'm just waffling.
And but no, you've been a great conversation, which it's been one of the easier conversations. I have not had to say much of anything, and that's always great. But I mean, so let's go ahead and wrap this up here. And
thank you.
And I mean, is there any other last bit of advice or anything that you want to kind of leave for as a final thought for people? Or
I suppose I go back to something I said earlier. If a young me came up to any falconer now and asked the question, instead of saying no, how can I help you, young man or young woman? Or read this book or read that book. And I think if you can give that a little bit of encouragement, we could maybe find the next young falconer that will become the next educator. Can be the next conservationist. It could be next rehabilitator. It can become the next Falconry Club president, for instance, because we need people sort of to work together. We don't need infighting. It happens, But give that young person just 5 minutes. Because then also we don't forget you were young once and you didn't know. Not all of us have been lucky enough. My daughter was very lucky enough her father was a falconer, and so she didn't necessarily have a choice. I didn't try to force it on her, but if you can give them that 5 minutes and just say, read this book, and I hope to see you again. And if you can learn that, I think that's probably the best way you can finish off this podcast.
Thank you, Neil. And once again, I appreciate it. And like I said, it's been a great opportunity. I've made a lot of new friendships over this weekend that I hope will last me a lifetime as well, yes, including yours.
Well, no, definitely.
So we'll. I guess I'm this porter that I just got at the store not too long ago is almost out, so it's about time for me to get a new one. And so I think that we can go ahead and wrap this up. And
thank
like
you
I said,
very much.
Thank you again. And let's go kind of have some more chit chat, and I'll get another beer.
No problem at all.
All right, thanks a lot, Neil.
Okay, thank you.